As we told you earlier in this broadcast, President Bola Tinubu has sent a list of 19 additional ministers designated to the Senate for screening, bringing the total number thus far to 47, having earlier forwarded a list of 28. The composition of both lists is remarkable for the heavy presence of career politicians. What also stands out on the list is the near absence of persons living with disability. Dr. Chike Okogwu is founder and Chief Responsibility Officer, Center for Ability, Rehabilitation and Empowerment, and he joins us now to discuss the exclusion of disabled persons from the ministerial list, as well as the rationale or lack thereof for a federal cabinet of 47 ministers in the midst of the call for a reduction in the cost of governance. Dr. Chike Okogwu, thank you so much for joining us on Newsday.
Thank you very much, my dear. And thank you for having me here too.
You're welcome. Now let's start with your thoughts on the ministerial list and the fact that persons with disability were excluded from that list. What are your thoughts?
This president campaigned on the mantra of renewed hope. Sadly, there is no hope for persons with disabilities. For the 7 ministerial nominees, not one of us is found worthy enough to be appointed a minister. That is an aberration on the fact that we have. It's an aberration on the 2018 Disability Act. This should not be tolerated. It is not acceptable. And we say we are out 30. I represent 35 million of about 30 million of us in Nigeria. And I have their mandate to say this to Mr. President. And the new congratulations to the former governor of Kano State, who has just been. I heard you say he has been confirmed as the new chairman. His gift to persons with disabilities should be nomination. We repeat, 10%. The law, there's a law that says, the act says, minimum of 5% of us should have representation in all levels of employment. How can this president decide to go against the law? It is not, I'm not here to come and plead to say, oh, please consider. No, it is our right. It is enshrined in the rights and privileges of every Nigerian. And we're captured in there that 5% of us must, at least 5%, should be given such representation. Our matters must come up in the Federal Executive Council. We must be represented there.
And it is a shame seeing as there's quite a few individuals within the disabled community who are quite vocal and active and put a face to the movement in order to be seen and heard. Unfortunately, it seems that there was an oversight and they were overlooked this time. But looking towards the future, what remedies can the government now make? The ministerial list is the last of the batch will be announced tomorrow. What other efforts can they put towards making the lives of those who are disabled within the country just that more manageable, and also to make it seem as though they are represented within our legal and judicial space?
You recall the last time I was here, I said, I quoted the former President Thabo Mbeki of South Africa, where he said that a country that does not take care of its vulnerable people, which includes persons with disabilities, is not, as a matter of fact, doing well. And I used my word wicked. Going forward, if by the next list, in the past, out of the 47, I noticed, I guess a few of them did not meet up to expectations. And if there's going to be a replacement of those ones, persons with disabilities, we have good people out there. They should be considered. So there's still a glimmer of hope. And that's why we're advocating through, thank you for giving us this platform to say this out. You know, we're saying they can redeem it. You see, the government is busy trying to get its good name into the ECOMOG side to make it look good. It's trying to manage labor. It's trying to manage Nigeria. It's trying to manage all the negative things that are happening. Imagine 30 million of us coming out next week to protest. Is that the kind of image this government wants to have? I mean, we are signatories to the United Nations Convention for the Rights and Protection of the Lives of Persons with Disabilities. Nigeria is a signatory to that convention. We have a Disability Act that clearly states it. You see, and if we begin to go against the laws of our land, we may look like we are weak. But I tell you something, there is strength in our weakness. Take it to the bank. There is strength in our weakness. It sounds ironical, but let me give you some examples. When you get to an elevator, that's what the law says. It says give way for the person with, is that not strength when you give way to somebody? You know, if you're on a queue, you say give way to the person with disability. That's some innate amount of strength, but that is beyond what we're saying here. Further to that, we're saying that all of us, many of us are capable. I repeat, I'm not here campaigning for me, Chike Okogwu, to be a minister. No, that's not why. I am too busy. You know, I have a lot of things that I'm doing. I'm not like Governor Wike, so please, this is just a joke, you know, but I'm saying that I'm not here to campaign for Chike Okogwu to be a minister. But I'm saying that there are many of us out there that are capable, brilliant hands, well-trained. Again, added to that, I wasn't born a person with disabilities. My point is that disability can happen to anybody. I was going to the airport on December 15, 2006 on my way to the Abuja airport. A car crash happened, spinal cord injuries, 16 years going to 17 years after, I am here. But what did I do with my life? I turned it around, and that's why I'm seated here. And there's so many of us like that. If you think that disability is not going to happen to you, I say it and I keep saying it, age is waiting for you down the road. And Mr. President, you are a person with disabilities. Let us call a spade a spade. We know, I mean, we all see, we read, Mr. President, do something for your community. We are your first constituency. You are our number one president. It should be our pride that we have a member of our community as the leader of this country. Take the bull by the horns. Nothing stops you, Mr. President. Do what is right. Appoint persons with disabilities. We're not even saying one. We're saying two at least. If you have a cabinet of 47 persons, 4 persons at least should have been persons with disabilities there. The advantage of this is this. 15% of your gross domestic product, of your GDP, will be captured because there are beautiful people out there with ideas and plans and, you know, things that they can do to make this country better. If you're able to capture them and bring them into the pool, you will be capturing 15% of us, and that will increase your GDP by 15%. That is what former UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon in one of the UN reports of 2013 said. So we should take advantage of all this. We shouldn't. I mean, in this 21st century, you are leaving a constituency out. When we preach inclusion, Mr. President, you talked about women, you talked about other people. I am not here to beg. I will not beg. We are not beggars. People with disabilities are not beggars. You see, we don't want to go the Montgomery way. Some of us are very well trained. We have organized in the past. We have organized in other countries. We can organize well. Mr. President, I tell you something. This is not a threat, and I'm not going to threaten the country. But I'm telling you something. If you push us to the wall, you will not enjoy our pushback. People with disabilities have courage. They have opportunities, they have responsibilities, and they know how to empower themselves. They can push. Go and ask some states in the past who have done it. But we are not going to do that. I tell you, we are not going to go that route. We will keep advocating, but I will not plead again. I'm speaking for 30 million persons. We are not begging again, but we're saying this is our right. Give us our rights. Chief of Staff to the President, you're a fantastic man. Right Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila, you are a good man, and we know you can push for all these things. The SGF is there. I mean, Mr. President, listen to all this.
Dr. Okogwu, I'm going to have to challenge you a bit on saying that the president is disabled. To the best of our knowledge, we do not have that information, and I believe we should stay away from speculations. Okay. Now, I'm going to ask another question. All right. Would you like to reply? Okay. Now, despite the clamor for reducing the cost of governance, Dr.
As long as anybody,
Okogwu,
even if it's
anything we are not sure of, maybe we should just stay off it. Now let's move on now. Despite the clamor for reducing the cost of governance, the president has released a list of 47 ministerial nominees. Now, what message does this send to Nigerians who are groaning under severe economic hardship? Are we seeing any signs, indeed, that this administration is interested in cutting the cost of governance?
Okay, now, cutting the cost of governance is not so much related to the number of ministers. If the problems are there and you have people to run them, sure, you can appoint more ministers. Cutting the cost of governance is when you have 40 cars in a convoy escorting one person. If you have 50 ministers and they drive themselves, and if you have 50 ministers who limit their convoys to 2 vehicles, who don't eat into our purses, trying to deplete our purses from corruption and extra codes and traveling and all that, it will be easy to manage. You see, Nigeria is a developing country. And as we develop, there are so many issues to take care of. From what we're seeing so far, because of the corruption in the system, it will appear that this is largesse for the boys. That is what is going on now. But I want to plead with him. This is where I'll make a plea. Make this count. If you're giving 47 seats out to people to be ministers, buy made in Nigeria official cars for them. The likes of Innocent and the rest of them are there. Don't go and buy Toyota Jeeps from Japan to come and give them brand new bulletproof Jeeps that will cost lots of... No. You see, we have to begin to do things creatively and in a great way to save costs. Yes, the Aberration committee has said merge some ministries and all that. That would have been the right thing to do. But you see, a former spokesperson of one of the, Mr. Femi Adesina in the past administration said every president has a style. This president, perhaps this is his own style. But in doing this your style, make it worthy, let it count. And in those numbers, include persons with disabilities. Yes, you need to cut down the cost. Don't begin to encourage people to begin to pilfer our funds and, waste money on unnecessary things. It is not necessary. If you want to have 50 ministers, fine, but reduce them because it reduce their expenditure. Because a minister is going to have, most ministers will have their essays, their PAs, and give an executive order. No minister should have more than 4 or 5 aides. Not when a minister is traveling, he's traveling with 20 staff and all that. I've flown with most of them, and you see a minister traveling with 15 people, 10 people to the United States, or outside of the country. All of them flying on business. Most of them will fly business class, and at the end of the day, they all collect extra codes. What are they all going there to do? When you travel as a minister, you don't need more than 2 or 3 people to do your work for you. After all, out there, we see ministers who drive themselves, they ride bicycles to work, they travel. We've traveled with many of them. We've seen them at international events. They carry their bags and everything. They come in, they just come in there and you don't even, no airs, nothing. But here in Nigeria, well, we still practice the, what we call in leadership, I don't want to use it's like, let me not use those words here, but the silverback mentality, the gorilla in the silverback gorilla, like me now, if I were a gorilla in the gorilla clan, because of my silver hair, the clan will appoint me the leader of the clan. So everybody now begins to kowtow towards the silverback gorilla. Let's stop this silverback gorilla mentality. We don't need it now.
Dr. Chike, speaking of applying things creatively, there's a saying that the squeakiest wheel gets the oil. In our country and all over the world, honestly, at this time, there's a lot going on. There are things and political issues that leaders of nations are struggling to deal with, and our country is no exception. We know that there's a lot of wheels turning. So since the disabled community seems to constantly get overlooked, what steps are they willing to take in order to be just that more visible? We do know that a few of you go on TV stations and have campaigns on radio in order to get the word out. But creatively speaking, we see that most subgroups that get ignored, they protest. What is the disabled community able to engage in some sort of public or united display in order to catch the attention of those who are in power, as they seem to be quite distracted, and this situation for a large group of individuals like yourself are in need. We do know, I think the last time you were here, we spoke about it, the documentary of the 1990s protest that happened in the US with disabled individuals who stormed the Capitol themselves and made quite a stir and got their own legislations passed. Not saying that the same would work here, but what is the community willing to do in order to put a more visible front? I know it's a hard question to ask, but at these times, we do know that there's the war in Ukraine, we know this war in Niger, there's the food crisis, there's palliatives, everything is going on. What can be done?
Thank you so much. You know, as you were asking the question, I was smiling, I was laughing. That is an option. That is one of our options. Now, picture this in your mind. 1,000 persons with disabilities on a wheelchair, stopping Mr. President from going out of the villa, or stopping Mr. Speaker from going out of the National Assembly in the full glare of international cameras and all that. Are you going to ride on us? We have powers. We have strength. It may get to that point. You see, we don't want to get pushed to the wall. But I tell you, it is one of the options there. We will keep advocating, we'll keep pleading, we'll keep talking. But like I said, pleading is a different language, in a different context. Pleading in form of advocacy. But I'm not here to beg. We are not going there pleading to beg. We will not. But you see, later today, we're going back again. To meet, and by tomorrow there's going to be a international world press conference. Yes, we're calling the whole world to come and hear us, and we will unveil what we want to do and our next line of action. But it's not going to be business as usual. It's not just going to be business as usual. That I cannot say. That's all I can say for now. It's not going to be business as usual. This kind of conversation where a few of us come to TV stations and radio stations and talk about, it's not going to be the same thing again. After today, it's not going to be the same thing again. We're going to change our methods, and we're very creative. We are very, very creative. Good creative too. We can get attention. We know how to do it. We know what to do. We will do it. But we don't want it to get to that stage.
Definitely, Dr. Okogwu. Now, in the event, that people with disability do not make it on the ministerial list, in the event, that after the screening, all the nominees are confirmed, in what other capacity can people with disability be included in governance? Which other capacity would be acceptable to you?
Yeah, okay, yeah. Heads of parastatals, special advisors, special assistants, and all that. So, yeah, there are other low-hanging fruits, but the message from my community to the president and this administration is no retreat, no surrender. Ministerial appointment is what we want. That is the way we can take it a notch higher. We will not back down on that. We are very serious about that. We must, and we repeat, the law of the land must be respected. There is a law to that effect, and the president must be seen to obey that law. This is not court order, these are not issues like court order things. No, this is a proper law of the land that concerns the vulnerable. You see, if Mr. President is able to do this, he will win the hearts of many. You must lead. Daniel Goleman in his book, Emotional Intelligence and all that, this is when we should bring up our emotional intelligence and put it to bear. This is where the president has to display that. Let's have some compassion. Show some compassion. You're not doing it by putting us in the federal cabinet. He's not doing us a favor. The people are not coming there because they are disabled, to come and be the weakest link there. No, they are coming there because they are special people who who are able to rise above their challenges. And you need to learn from them what they do to be able to rise up above their challenges. And when you put the issues of PWDs in the Federal Executive Council, it's going to cascade down even into the private sector. The states are going to follow suit. Local government is going to follow suit. The private sector will follow. Everybody will begin to see inclusion. And once you have a coloration of inclusion, remember I talked about the 50% GDP, more people will be captured into this net, and you will see that your GDP will rise because you have more hands on deck to do the work for you. It's important that we do it. This is the 21st century. Nigeria should not be left behind. Nigeria should not be left behind at all.
Representation certainly matters. Dr. Chike Okogwu, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon for this important conversation.